Bob Beckel. I'm proud to be a liberal. I believe that health care is a right, not a privilege.
Hi, I'm Cal Thomas, a conservative who is pro-life. And this is Common Ground. Welcome to Common Ground, a video version of my and Bob Beckel's bi-weekly USA Today column in which we try to figure out just how to bridge Washington's partisan divide. Okay, Bob, today the subject is Afghanistan, a continuing sore. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, you know, it wasn't a continuing sore, though. You remember when we used to look at Afghanistan as the good war and Iraq was the bad war? Well, now all of a sudden Afghanistan is getting to be very contentious, particularly on my side of the aisle among Democrats, who wonder whether there ought to be additional troops sent in there. And, you know, Obama has sent in 21,000 more troops. They've got a new commander there who wants more troops. So I guess the question is, a war that people thought was the right one to fight, all of a sudden there's some questions in the polls whether we should fight it. So what happened?
Well, I think we don't have the kind of patience that we have had in the past, not only with wars, but with other things. We want everything wrapped up like a television show in 54 minutes with time for commercials and station breaks. Real wars, and especially this one, don't behave that way. They have their own timeline, and we don't know the end of it until the end of it. But I want to praise something. Now, hold on to your seat here. I want to praise something that President Obama said in his August speech to the veterans of foreign wars in Phoenix. Listen to this. You'll like it, I think. He said, the insurgency in Afghanistan didn't just happen overnight, and we won't defeat it overnight, but we must never forget this is not a war of choice. It is a war of necessity. Those who attacked America on 9/11 are plotting to do so again. If left unchecked, the Taliban insurgency will mean an even larger safe haven from which al-Qaeda could plot to kill more Americans. Amen.
That must have been painful for you.
No, I loved it.
Yeah, I bet. Look, I tell you, though, Obama's going to have problems in his own base on this thing. Because, look, not only have you sent in 21,000 troops, but they're talking about more troops. Secretary of Defense Gates says he probably will be open to it. And Obama probably will be open to it. This smells to me like you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out there's going to be more troops. But like Vietnam, the question is how long, what's the exit strategy, what's the reason for being there?
Well, Bob, you know the reason for being there is to destroy al-Qaeda. But unlike Vietnam, this is not a state border war. Vietnam was confined to Vietnam, despite those who argued about the domino theory that if we lost there, the rest of Southeast Asia, in fact, all of Asia would be gone. That proved not to be true. But Afghanistan is only emblematic of a larger war. As we know, al-Qaeda is raising its head now in countries like Yemen and Somalia. This is a borderless war fueled by a fanatical ideology and supported by a corrupt version of Islam.
Okay, but let's get back to Afghanistan for a second. I don't disagree with that, but look, what they're talking about that I do like is an infusion, a surge, if you will, using Petraeus's idea in Iraq. But not only a surge of troops, but a surge of aid, to get aid directly to people. You know, that country has one of the highest illiteracy rates in the world. It's mostly farmers, many of them growing poppy for heroin. The Taliban is back and active, as we know. More soldiers were killed in August, U.S. soldiers, than any other month in this war. So the question, though, is you've got a corrupt government with an election that is very questionable, and the money is not necessarily getting down to the people. So what are you going to do about it?
Well, I'd like to see some kind of alternative structure where the money could go to an independent organization that would bypass the Karzai government and bypass as many of the warlords as possible. That would go directly to fixing highways, building schools, and supporting infrastructure, if that's possible. I think it could be partially possible. This would circumvent the people who are siphoning off a lot of the money for their own corrupt principles.
Yeah, but let's remember, these warlords have been around for thousands of years, and that's a country made up of tribes, really, more than a central government. But look, here's where, although every bit of my liberal instincts tell me I want to get out of this war, every bit of them.
Well, I would too. Nobody loves wars.
But here's the problem. It borders Pakistan. Pakistan is now the refuge for the Taliban to go there and then come back over and to attack NATO forces in Afghanistan. But more than that, there are radical elements that want to take over the Pakistani government. Pakistan has nuclear weapons.
Indeed.
And Pakistan's adversary, India, which also has radicals, trying to take over that government,
and has nuclear weapons.
Has nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
So my greatest fear, of course, is that these nuclear weapons fall into the hands of these terrorists. So I guess as you look at it, you have to look at it as broader than the Afghanistan war and say to yourself, if the United States left this region, how dangerous would it be? And my guess is pretty dangerous.
You're absolutely right, Bob. I was interested to see that the Pakistani government has started a little mini media blitz, taking out ads in newspapers where the president is pictured assuring Americans that we're in this for the long haul, we're going to defeat terrorism. What I'd like to see, though, instead of signing an agreement in the northwest part of Pakistan near the Afghanistan border, which has turned into more al-Qaeda-based training camps, I'd like to see the Pakistanis exert the kind of pressure that's needed to weed them out.
Okay, before we sound like we're in love on this subject, let me point out that had George Bush not abandoned this war for the last 6 years, we probably wouldn't be in the trouble that we're in here. But having said that, I don't know for how long I can say this, but and you certainly have not turned me into a warmonger, I'll tell you that. But I do agree that for the time being at least, if there's any common ground to be had here on war at all, it probably ought to be Afghanistan because, as you say, it's more than Afghanistan. It's a war against terrorists who want to get their hands on nuclear weapons.
That's right.
And do damage to us.
Yeah, well, I think, look, one of the many things I like about you, Bob, is that, you know, when you're confronted with irrefutable facts, you embrace the facts instead of the ideology. I salute you on that. And that's why I'm praising President Obama, who said this was not a war of choice. It was not our choice to start this war, but it's got to be our choice to finish it and to win it.
Don't do us any favors, Cal, by being nice to us, will you? I'm going to have to defend this for my liberal friends. All right, look, we've got, I want you to check out our column in the paper and on USA Today's opinion blog at usatoday.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back again in 2 weeks for the next installment of Common Ground.